What's good, everybody? What's up, man? It's Stephen Quallity, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host.
Ashley right first.
Indeed, you know what I'm saying? First of her kind, last of it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we back for another episode of the Right Quality. Got some really fun topics to get into today. Been a little bit of ain't been too crazy of the weekend sports, but a lot of interesting things has happened. So we're gonna jump right into it. Actually, let's start with football. Obviously the Super Bowl has passed. Obviously, we all know that the Buccaneers have won. We know that KC did not complete the running back tour. Sorry to all my KC friends and family. I apologize that y'all have to deal with this hurt. Um, I guess we got to start with Brady. Brady is Brady the GOAT of football at this point? Is he undoubtedly, undisputedly the GOAT?
Yeah, undoubtedly, undisputedly the GOAT. 7 rings, but we're not even just going to talk about rings. He's a quarterback who's gotten 7 rings. So he's at the head position of both football teams that he's taken to the Super Bowl. And he went to a team that was 7-9 before he got to that team, has turned that team into a Super Bowl team. And a lot of people are like, well, he has Leonard Fournette, that team is loaded, Mike Evans, blah, blah, blah. But Leonard Fournette came after Tom Brady signed. So that's kind of the effect also that Tom Brady has. People want to play with this quarterback. Rob Gronkowski comes out of retirement to join Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady is definitely the GOAT, and he showed why.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think there's this hatred of Brady, amongst NFL fans. I mean, outside of him being MAGA Tom, honestly, like outside of that, in a pure football perspective, um, it's it's just really difficult to be upset or to not respect what he's done. And I think one thing about Brady is that Brady was not he was not number one pick with expectations of doing this in the league or expectations of turning franchises around. He really had to prove that. And I think what's more impressive and something that I don't think people realized until maybe after this specific Super Bowl, Brady's done a lot of damage in the latter half of his Super Bowl. Like Brady, he performed, well early in his career, obviously, and won 3 or 4 rings early. But these last three, if I'm not mistaken, all happened after the age of 37, first and foremost. It all happened in the back end of his career when most people had kind of written him off, which I think is even more impressive. So I'm not like the biggest football person, but from what I do know about other players who are in that conversation, whether you're talking about your Joe Montanas, whether you're talking about like even other positions like your Jerry Rices and things of that nature, it's it's kind of hard because nothing moves without the quarterback in football. Obviously, we all know that. So for him to be in that position and for him to not only, like you said, like winning is a thing, sure, but it's the way. It's the way that Brady has gone about winning and bringing teams together and doing either one, doing things with very little, or two, having the reach to be able to get people to want to be with him and make runs with him. And we said that if they won, he should retire. Clearly, he does not have plans on retiring. We see we'll have the video come up, but we saw he was off something on that boat. Uh,
He said it was tequila on
it
Twitter.
was tequila. Well, hey, as it should. I don't know if we ever gonna see somebody else toss a trophy, a Lombardi trophy, from boat to boat. I
Yeah.
just
I mean, when you win 7, what's one?
what's one? What happens if something happens to one? I still got 6 sitting at the crib, So I mean, but yeah, that do you think now? Obviously, every team feels this confident after winning the Super Bowl, but the Bucks, like most teams, have made it clear that they feel like they can repeat and that they can actually run it back and do it again. Uh, Obviously, they have a chance, but they still have to handle some things with their team and see if they're going to be able to sign everybody once again. How likely is it? Do you think that they'll either one reach next year's Super Bowl and two actually win it again in a row?
It's extremely likely that they can reach next year's Super Bowl. There's been so many times where Tom has made back-to-back appearances. So I think that's definitely possible. Re-signing everybody is also possible. Like I mentioned before, Tom brought some of these pieces here with him. And, the joy of winning a Super Bowl, that doesn't fade away for these players. So players will likely, take those pay cuts or necessary arrangements to their contracts to be able to stay in Tampa Bay, I feel.
Yeah. I think I don't think people will mind taking pay cuts. And I think if you were going to run it back with a quarterback, I mean, it's Brady. Obviously you have somebody like Mahomes in that situation, but I also think that the organization probably is the key here. Like, Brady is going to handle things on the field, but I think the organization recognizes that obviously, Brady is somebody that they can trust, and they probably have a small window with him. So if they want to do this thing where they have this 2-3 year stretch of potentially running the NFC, I would make it happen because you ride Brady until he say he done. So I say you do what you got to do, but had to start there. I mean, yeah, Brady's the GOAT. I don't know if you can say anything else. Staying in football, what's going on with this Texan situation, man? What at this point? There's so much that happened. We've known Deshaun has went out for some time. On top of that, if I'm not mistaken, their GM or their owner just resigned, and he's been with the organization for 20 years. Um, they just, recently released J.J. Watt. So, and I mean, and he wanted, to be out as well. So, what is going on in Houston? Let us know.
Apparently this has been going on for quite some time. And like previous episodes, I mentioned when Andre Johnson, who was a wide receiver for the Texans, he took to Twitter and said, Deshaun Watson, basically stand your ground. If you want out of Houston, let them know that you want out of Houston and you're serious about it. And then DeAndre Hopkins, who was recently traded from Houston, doubled on what Andre Johnson said. There has been turmoil in Houston for quite some time. Andre Johnson has been retired for a good minute now. And so when two of the biggest stars on opposite sides of the ball want out, it's a huge problem. I have no idea what's going on, but it obviously has something to do with the front office.
Yeah, and analysts have been talking about this all week, but something else seems to be going on in Houston. Because if you look at the fact that Harden wanted out,
Yeah.
JJ wants out, and I guess I didn't really realize this, but apparently Houston doesn't have an income tax.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, apparently
And their baseball team was caught cheating. I don't know what Houston has going
Houston clearly has a problem. Houston clearly has a
yeah.
problem
Yeah.
because what's going on down there? But yeah, I mean it's so when we look at Deshaun Watson, he's obviously one of the top quarterbacks in general, but more specifically one of the top young quarterbacks. And I mean he led the league in passing yards last year, and I think it's unfortunate that he's in a situation where it seems as if the organization borderline doesn't really appreciate him or is not trying to take care of him, even though he is clearly franchise quarterback material and seems to have been somebody who was willing to stay and willing to do what it takes to make it work, but just has reached his breaking point. What's the solution from here on out? And if the solution is him leaving or being traded or what have you, where does he go? What does that look like? I've heard analysts say that maybe, they should trade, him for Dak, just, straight up quarterback for quarterback. But how does that look? Because I don't think the Texans they don't seem like they're going to really work with him or try to get him somewhere where he wants. I see them kind of playing a card of holding on to him or just making this as difficult as possible.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. They don't try to make their players happy. I don't think that, they have a history of doing what's in the best interest of the player. They look at players just as players, like they're not human beings that have these emotions that, have desires as well. With Deshaun Watson wanting to get out and they keep holding on to him, it took the Rams 2 seconds to trade for Matt Stafford, who was out of Detroit. So it's like I really don't understand. Maybe they're doing what's best for the team, and from that standpoint, I would get it because you want as much in return as possible for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson. You saw what the Rams had to give Detroit. Detroit got a lot back for Matt Stafford. So, like, not throwing shade or anything, but Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is a way better quarterback than Matt Stafford. the Texans can get the house for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, and they should, if that's what they're doing, wait to do that.
Yeah, I really wouldn't take anything less if I'm the Texans. I mean, I don't really know what their plan is as an organization here. I mean, seeing that they, obviously were a playoff team 2 years ago, and seem to be, very formidable in that regard and seem to be on their way. But, you trade away your best receiver, and then now your quarterback's looking to go, and then, one of the main fixtures of your defense is going now as well. So what exactly is the next step? Well, what's the plan for the Texans? That's yet to be seen. But that's really the major news in football. I mean, they talked about Mahomes. They've had the conversations of basically saying that Mahomes can no longer ever be the GOAT because he'll never have more than likely he'll never have a head to head meeting with Brady. And I mean, even if it was to be a repeat of the Super Bowl, they basically like him winning that could potentially be the only thing on top of him. Obviously, winning multiple Super Bowls would be the case. And I don't know. I think that's why you have to be careful how early you crown somebody, how early you want to start saying these things. Because again, I think you can acknowledge the unique and rare talent that Mahomes is, and the fact that he'll be around for a long time. He'll probably go down as one of the greats. He's already considered to be one of the greats. But when you do that so early, and you get in situations like this, because you look at it, everybody looks good to your O-line injury. Everybody look good till you ain't got time in the pocket. Everybody look good till your main receivers is hugged up real tight, by all the defenders. So you got I think it just goes to show that like you got to understand this, like while the quarterback controls a lot, it's more of a team game. So when you start getting to these conversations about this quarterback being better than the other, you have to look at it holistically and look at their entire situation. What's their O-line look like? What's their defense like? Do they have help? Is it just them? It's a lot to look into. But I think I mean the NFL even getting through the season in itself is amazing. We spoke about that before, but let's see they were able to actually finish their season, and it didn't seem to have too many hiccups. In terms of COVID. I mean, yes, you had teams that couldn't play sometimes and things of that nature, but for the most part, it was a pretty smooth season. So I guess that gives hope to moving forward, depending on, where we're at in the country as far as the virus and everything. But yeah, switching to the NBA. So I think we say this every year, right? But LeBron James is in the running for MVP. Like, I feel like that's the case every year. I think just because we've come to expect this productivity from LeBron, and we kind of expect, his teams to always be good because he's on there. I think he sometimes gets overlooked in that regard for MVP. However, I think this year is a little bit different just from the standpoint of, they're in this stretch of like, 3 or 4 overtime games that they've won. And on top of that, he's been the closer, for these games. Do you feel like this season is any different in terms of his recognition or the likelihood that he could go on to win MVP? And is he your front runner right now?
He's definitely my front runner right now, but I don't think in terms of recognition this season is any different. I think almost every season that LeBron has played, and especially recent seasons, even from stemming from the years that he was in Miami, we've always talked about LeBron being the front runner for MVP. We've always highlighted the personal statistics that LeBron James has had, and then like the team's record with him off the floor, team's record with him on the floor, efficiency, things of that nature has always been highlighted for LeBron. So I don't think that this season is any different. The only thing that's different is he's doing it in his 18th year in the season in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only difference. Recognition, yeah, it's always been like that.
I agree. How long does LeBron James play?
What is he, 35 right now?
If this is year 18, he would have just turned 36.
36. Okay, he's 36. I think he can reach 40 playing at this level. He's playing like this is year what, 4? He's playing very well.
This is extremely it's extremely scary to think about because and this question has been posed, is LeBron James playing the best basketball of his career?
Right. And it's weird. We're talking about a 36-year-old man.
And I think what's odd, I don't think it's as simple as a question. I don't think it's a yes or no question. Because you could easily say, like, what's weird is this isn't even considered to be his prime. And I think if you're a basketball fan, you understand what prime means. So it's not to say that he's not playing at an outstanding level. But this is not peak. This is not prime LeBron James, which is even more scary because prime LeBron James, the freak athlete that was in Miami,
Yes,
uh,
jumping over John Lucas.
right? Like that's prime LeBron James right there. But I think the difference is LeBron has always been a student of the game. He's always had a basketball mind. Like Brown was always more than just a hooper. Like Brown don't hoop. Like Brown like play basketball. Brown don't hoop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you see him in year 18 and we've seen this really for I'd say since he came back to Cleveland. I think we started seeing this side of Bron. Everything is mental. So when you see him on the floor, he's so particular about picking spots, so particular about getting other players into their spots, making them better. And I think that's where the argument is valid that he's playing his best basketball because he might be at his mental peak
Mhm.
in terms, not his physical peak, obviously, but his mental peak. And that could be the argument for him playing his best basketball. But I think it's scary. I think you're talking about somebody that could not only be playing 20 plus years in the league, but dominate. Like it's not like he's in the league just kind of, chilling on the bench or having some vet role. Like he's consistently a top 5, top 3 player in the league, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. Do you think he's still after eclipsing Jordan in terms of total championships?
I don't think so anymore.
I don't
I
think so
I
either.
think LeBron is just he's in his own lane. He's creating his own legacy, own dynasty. He's doing what LeBron wants to do. I don't think Jordan is on his mind anymore.
And I don't think he should. I mean, I don't think he has anything to prove
Mhm.
in the context of comparison against Jordan. I don't think you can compare the two because I don't think you can compare the times. I don't think you can really compare games. I mean, you can, but at the end of the day, they're just two completely different games. LeBron affects the game in different ways than Jordan did. Um, I guess with all that being said, and to kind of end off the LBJ conversation, if he's not your GOAT already, can LeBron be the GOAT? Do you think he can ever be the GOAT in your eyes? And what's your reasoning for whatever your answer is?
My eyes, no. My reasons, 6-0. That's all I have to say about that.
And it's hard when we get into the ring argument because
Not
obviously
even just about the ring
it's
argument.
not. It's not.
Michael Jordan was the leader of those Bulls teams.
He was.
There's no taking away that he was the head of those teams and he led them to those 6 finals.
He did. And so are you saying LeBron didn't necessarily lead all his team?
I'm not saying he didn't lead all his teams, but in doing so, he has come up short.
That I think that is to be noted as well. And I think people kind of pick and choose when they want to accept that as part of the discussion.
Mhm.
But I think you do have to acknowledge that Jordan, in the finals at least, Jordan did not come up short.
No.
Um, and I think it's and what's really crazy is that their careers are similar in the sense of like Jordan played Detroit like 2 years before he actually got through them
Mhm.
and started their run. So
Right.
if you think about not, I mean, who's to say if they would have won or not? But you think about if Jordan and them would have got through the bad boys. You think
Mhm.
about if Jordan doesn't retire in the middle of both three peats. If we talking about him potentially being 8-0, like
Yep.
these are legit possibilities. Um, and I think a lot of people make the argument, and it can go so many ways because if you want to look at it, LeBron also could very easily have 2 more.
Uh-huh.
He really, if we being completely honest, I say Bron should have 2 more, and he had the potential to have 3. They shouldn't have lost to Dallas,
Right.
and you got to think he lost to arguably the greatest team in NBA history twice.
Mhm.
So, and granted, the facts are the facts. He lost, period. But when you look at that, and when you look at the fact that one could argue Jordan was never as shorthanded. One could argue that Jordan never played a team of that caliber. You could make these arguments, but I all of that being said, I still pretty much agree with you. I'm in the same boat. Not the ring thing, like the count is not really a thing to me.
Right.
Like it's more so the way
Yes.
Jordan went about winning these.
And that's what I mean by 6-0. Like I said, he led these Bulls teams. And I'm glad that you mentioned that he played the Bad Boys previously to actually getting to the finals because LeBron played that Celtics
Yeah.
team
Mm-hmm.
before jumping ship. Now, what Jordan didn't do was jump ship. What LeBron did was jump ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So it's crazy. Side note, I don't know if you saw it, and for any of the viewers, if I don't know if y'all watch All the Smoke or not, but the Doc Rivers and Kendrick Perkins interviews, both those interviews shed a lot of light on that time in Boston, like from LeBron being in Cleveland to then going to Miami and how that affected the Big Three, which I also think is a moment in NBA history that a lot of people seem to overlook and don't talk about as much. But neither here nor there. They kind of shed light on the aspect of LeBron in that time. So yeah, but no, I'd agree. I mean, I put it like this: Bron has the potential to more than likely be the most decorated and most accomplished NBA player ever. And I don't think a lot of it is going to be touched when you talk about all the records he holds in the playoffs, all the records he holds in the regular season. The majority of records that he isn't leading in, he's only behind Kareem. So
Right. Exactly.
and if the fact that Bron may play till 40 means that he has the potential to pass Kareem. Mind you, Bron averages just under 2,000 points a season. And he currently sits about somewhere around 4,000 away from Kareem at this point. So it's doable. It's extremely possible, especially considering the fact that Bron more than likely going to play, deep into the postseason every year anyway. So it's tough because then you make the argument if he becomes the most accomplished, how much does that change or how much does that affect the conversation? Because you can't ignore it. You can't not acknowledge that he could potentially be the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, be top 10 in rebounds if I'm not mistaken, almost be top 10 in assists if I'm not mistaken, and on top of that, probably end up with at least 5. I feel like he's going to have at least 5 rings. So with all that combined, it's like when can you solidify the case that all things considered, not just rings, but the fact that he holds all these records as well, does that change it for you, or do you think it could change it for anybody?
It doesn't change it for me. I think it just speaks to his longevity in the league. I think that's what it speaks to. Like we mentioned, Jordan's retired for 2 seasons. You know what I mean? And even if we're not just talking about Jordan, Kareem, I, he Father Time got to Kareem. Father Time isn't getting to LeBron. And people will say, well, see, that's why he should be the GOAT because Father Time did it. But no.
And I think the longevity argument, especially when you're talking about LeBron playing post 2000, the other players we're talking about playing in, the 80s and the 90s, it is clear that there were medical advancements that now aid players in being able to take care of their bodies better and play longer. So, you look at somebody like LeBron who's been taking care of his body.
he even mentioned, I spend $1 million on my body every year.
Yeah, whereas they didn't have, you couldn't do that, back in the day. And it just wasn't really the way of the league, to be completely honest. So, but all in all, I think it's a conversation that many people will continue to have. But I think, when you have the conversation, it can't just come down to one player being better. I think you just have to look at all these aspects, and you can have your opinion, but I just think you have to consider all the aspects and understand that there's so much that goes into that. So it's not just like, oh, it's just 6-0, or oh, Bron is just better. Like there's so much that goes into it that I just hope people have when you're having these debates, discussions, wherever you're having them. But yeah, LBJ could easily win MVP this year. It'll be interesting to see. while we on the topic of Bron and people in his class, Melo, I think Melo's going to have an extremely interesting story when his career is over. It's going to be extremely underrated, and I can't wait for his story to actually be realized because, as we were talking about off camera, we see that he this week he moved into 12th on the all-time scoring list. So currently, I think in the top 25, him and Melo and Bron are the only two active players in the top 25 currently on the scoring list. But Melo also is less than 1,000 points away from 10, if I'm not mistaken. So, Melo could easily, get into the top 10 as well. And I think that's something to speak about because I don't think Melo is necessarily close to being done either. And obviously, like we've said it before, like this is a Melo Stan account. This is a Melo Stan podcast. So everything positive will be spoken about Melo on this here show. But no, honestly, he looks in great shape. He's still very much, pretty much the weapon he's always been. He's just older. But man, like what are your thoughts on Melo right now and his story in general? When you talk about somebody who was just as dominant in a lot of ways as Bron was, especially in those first 6-7 years of their career before they both eventually ended up leaving and going to different teams. But you talk about somebody who in Denver was playing in the Western Conference Finals, going, before in 09, and 10, if I'm not mistaken. You're talking about somebody who went to the Knicks and they really didn't build, around him the way they should have. And then from there, you talk about him just pretty much being done wrong or casted off in every other, city and team he was on until he got to Portland. And a lot of wasted time in his career. A lot of wasted time. A a year and a half he wasn't in the league, so a lot of time missed where he might already be 10 or in the top 10 by now. So what are your thoughts on his career and his story up to this point?
Um, to me, a lot of people also, like, as far as fans go, were writing Melo off too, as much as the teams were. And while this is a Melo Stan account, I'm not going to act like, in some ways his efficiency went down. But now that he's gotten his shot in Portland, he looks good. He's knocking down the shots that we've all been accustomed to seeing him knock down. And the fact that he moved up to 12th on the list, I think, does a lot for his career and his story, like you said, leading up to now. I mean, he's won the national championship. He is 12th on the list, as we mentioned. He has the most Olympic medals in Olympic history. He's a baller. And, a lot of people, well, he hasn't hoisted the trophy. Oh, now the ring talk is convenient when it comes to Melo's story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Melo's no different in this context, I believe, than any of your other greats that don't have a ring but still made the Hall of Fame. I mean, there are a lot of great players that don't have an opportunity to get a ring. I mean, you got to think when that Denver team, who they lose to, the
Right.
Lakers, who won the championship,
and they won that, yeah.
So it's like you got when he was in a position to do so, he lost to a great. So and that, like, why didn't Barkley get one? Lost to a great. Like all those that didn't get one lost to a great. So it's just like it's something that comes with it, sometimes. But I hope Melo plays. I don't know what his official season count might be, but obviously this would technically be year 18 for him as well. So I hope Melo could go on and play 20. I mean, you got to think about it. If Wade doesn't have the injuries that he has, in that time in his career, if he doesn't deal with that shoulder injury and his knees don't damn near give out on him, Wade probably could have played 20 as well. I mean, Wade, if you see any videos of him working out with Zaire, Wade's still in shape. I think Wade just didn't want to play no more, honestly. I think Wade just was like, I don't want to be in the league no more. But I think he was very capable of playing, like, if he wanted to.
Yeah, I think it was, like, for him, it's the mindset of, if it's not Miami, I really don't want to be here. We saw him go to Chicago. He wasn't happy. He ultimately ended up back in Miami, but in Miami, he just didn't fit that system anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean,
he would have definitely still been in the league.
Right. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm wishing the best for Melo, honestly, man. Is a ring more than likely in his sight, before his career is over? Probably not, but I think definitely seeing him, play as long. I see him and Bron both. I see them going out at the same time. To be completely honest, I see that happening, barring any serious type of injury or whatever. But I see them both leaving at the same time. To be completely honest, so it'll be interesting, man. But love Melo as always, as y'all should know. They're saying Utah's the real deal now. We've seen Utah be relevant the past couple of years. They've been a playoff team. They obviously have the stars in Mitchell and Gobert. What's so different about this year? What makes them legit? Why should we fear, for lack of a better word, or be nervous about Utah, really making a run or challenging the contenders of both LA teams out west?
It looks like Utah is a lot more comfortable. Now they're just playing basketball. It doesn't look like they're thinking too hard. They're having the trust issues, whether or not I feel like in some games last season especially, it was questions of passing the ball to Gobert in the post. It was questions of, kicking it out for Donovan Mitchell. And now I feel like it's no question. It's just that chemistry has been built. And chemistry is obviously one of the key components to a championship run for any NBA team. And I think now Utah finally has gotten that down pat.
Is Utah another Milwaukee?
Is Utah another Milwaukee? I ooh, I say no. I say no because I think this is where Milwaukee wants to get to. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I think this is where Milwaukee wants to be, where Utah is now with that chemistry. I don't think that Milwaukee has that yet, honestly.
They don't. And I'm not the thing is I don't really know how they get there. To be honest, I don't know what is missing really. But I'd
I
agree.
think they made a step to doing that when they traded for Drew Holiday.
Yeah. Um, and what's crazy is I think Utah's going to still be legit come playoff time. I don't think this regular season is a fluke. But what's interesting about Milwaukee is I think they are now, I think it's an inverse of what we've seen the last two seasons. I think they are now built more for the playoffs than they are the regular season. Uh, just
Why?
because it's Drew. I've been saying this since the trade, and I will say it all season. Drew is the difference. And by that I mean not that Drew hasn't performed in the regular season. Like clearly he's still, obviously a threat now. But I don't think Drew has shown up in the playoffs as well. And then on top of that, I don't think Drew has ever been in a position where his team legitimately has a shot to get out of the East. Like it's a legitimate chance. Like y'all are in the conversation. Um, I see Drew playing a large role in the confidence of the
Mm-hmm.
team going into the playoffs. I think when you looked at the regular season, it was fun. It was day to day. Giannis gonna go off, and we just gonna wait for our open shots, and we hitting them, and it's great. And then when it came to the playoffs and teams studying you, we realized, our depth chart wasn't that deep. We only went, if we want to be honest, we only went about 3-4 deep, for real, for real. So, but now, and I think it's even better that Giannis has kind of been challenged and exposed to a degree the way he has, because now it's like, okay, you have Drew. So you can't, Giannis doesn't have to do as much alone. I think Milton's getting better each season. Then you add Drew, but Drew is that difference because I trust Drew with the ball more than I trusted Bledsoe with the ball. Drew's going to make better decisions than Bledsoe made. And since you were trying to essentially run your offense through Bledsoe or have Bledsoe be your tertiary option from Giannis, he didn't give you anything. He couldn't give you outside shooting. He gave you defense, and that was just about it. But Drew's an upgrade in that, and he's a drastic upgrade offensively. So I think that makes the huge difference is somebody else who can take a shot at the end of the game.
And from
Um,
that standpoint, on the Utah side, that's Mike Conley for Ricky Rubio.
yes, completely agree. Perfect example. And I think we saw that last year. I mean, you got to remember, Utah lost in the final seconds of a game 7. In a series, they were up 3-1 that they shouldn't have lost to begin with. So I think that might have been where the questions, really came from was that. But Utah's been solid. And Conley, when that trade first happened, I think a lot of people were like, Utah should be serious with Conley over there. So it'll be interesting to see what run they make. And I would love to see in the playoffs, especially if they're to keep this 1 seed, what this looks like, how we could potentially be talking about Utah going to the Western Conference Finals. But it also would be very interesting if they stay that 1 seed and get like not Dallas. I would love to see them play Golden State in the first round. If that's what it came down to. We'd love to see Steph in the playoffs again. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's really interesting. Back to some of the smaller things before we wrap up with a moment of clarity. So Luka had a career high. We were this Saturday, so Luka had a career high last night. It was 46. Yeah, we talked about it either last episode or a couple episodes ago. Luka Magic is still a thing, so Luka doing this is not surprising. And we just talked about this as well. They were a week or two ago. They were almost dead last in the West, and now they're the 9th seed, I believe, right behind Golden State, if I'm not mistaken. Neck and neck with them. So I definitely think Dallas can be a contender. Well, not a contender. They are a playoff team, but I mean, there's a lot of playoff teams in the West, so. It just depends on who can get the wins, honestly. But Luka is Luka. In a game, in one of Luka's other games this past week, they played the Hawks, and so that was a game where I think Luka went off, Trey went off, and we'll have the clip come up here. But at the end of that game, Trey thought he got fouled by Willie Cauley-Stein, and I think this first time we saw Trey really angry. In this capacity and go off on a ref. It's not really much to make of this situation, but what did you just think of the emotion you saw from Trey in that moment? One, was it valid? And two, is this kind of emotion or this passion something you want to see from Trey moving forward? Because I think I like that fiery kind of Trey in a similar manner to when you see Steph get a little fiery or chippy, because Steph is not naturally that kind of guy, but when he does become that guy, like it's a problem. I see Trey having similar productivity in that regard. But yeah, what are your thoughts on just that situation in that game and what happened?
Yeah, so I love seeing that from Trey, actually. And the play that we're talking about, Willie Cauley-Stein set a pick. It was the final seconds of the game. Hawks ended up losing that game. And this just for our audio listeners who probably aren't able to see the clip or whatever. But I don't think it was a foul. I'm gonna start by saying that I don't think it was a foul. But Trey had a valid reasoning because Willie Cauley-Stein did kind of get there just in the nick of time. And from his perspective, it could have felt like a moving screen. In terms of yelling the expletives that he yelled to the white ref that he yelled them to, I don't think that was necessarily valid. But I love seeing that emotion from him, especially from a player that can go off at any second. I think stuff like that, it felt like the playoffs, even though these are teams in different conferences, it felt great to see Trey Young, kind of get in his zone.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, plays like that happen all the time, and they can always go 50-50. But I think I'd rather see Trey kind of have some emotion about it than him not care at all. Just to know his head is there and his heart is there. More importantly, just as a fan, especially as a young player, because Trey is not he's not a crier either, really. So yeah, it was nice to see. Last but not least, before a moment of clarity, this man Bradley Beal. We'll have it come up, but the man say gravity might need to go play on the damn moon for a chance for a shot to go in reference to the Wizards struggling 3-point shooting. I don't know how many more metaphors Bradley Beal can use to describe how bad the Wizards are. I don't know.
I also want to say that a reporter asked him if he was frustrated. Brad responded with, "Is the sky blue?" Then after the Wizards fell to 2-7 on the season, he said, "We can't guard a parked car." I I feel so bad for it, bro. I feel so bad for Bradley Beal. Like I legit do. I don't know. I don't know. But it just seems like he doesn't want out of Washington with the things that he says. It's, you make these metaphors, but you don't want to leave. You sign this deal, but you're complaining.
I don't. Here's the thing. I'm not sure so much. I'm not sure so much that it's that he doesn't want to leave. I don't think he'll ever say he wants to leave publicly. But if he's not having some talk with management at this point internally, I'm just thoroughly confused because at this point you can say you want to stay all you want, but why? For what? Like there you can tell. I don't care. You don't. I don't see what you can tell me that's gonna be a legitimate reason for you staying. They're not surrounding you, and they're not surrounding you with nobody. They don't seem to be making any moves. I don't care. Y'all got the worst record in the league, and y'all get the first pick next year. It ain't gonna change much. So it's just like I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Like, what you want to? I don't know. I don't know, man. Yeah, well, hope things get better for Brad. Honestly, truly, I mean, I'm not sure what that looks like, but I hope they get better for him in general. But man, moment of clarity. What you got for me this week, Pimpin?
I got a couple. I don't know if this is if it's one of yours, we could just expand on it. But the first one was after Tom Brady won his seventh ring, the Patriots of all teams took to Twitter and congratulated this man as if they didn't run him out the door because they didn't want to give him any more money. So I'm just wondering, first of all, why are you congratulating me? I don't want to hear from you. Like this is part of me rubbing it in your face and you're showing sportsmanship. I don't like it.
I don't have the answer for you. I don't really know what New England's doing. Maybe they're salty. I'm not sure. Um, maybe they're just trying to be classy. I don't really know. I don't. But if I'm Tom, I don't know why y'all talking to me. Honestly,
Right.
I don't care. Like I don't care if you say congratulations or not. I don't take this. Like that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, why do most NFL teams have a Twitter to begin with and actually tweet from it? I don't really know. But I mean, at best, it's probably just them being salty. Maybe they just didn't want to not say nothing and that be interpreted. I don't really know. It's hey man, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I'm with you. Why? I don't know. I don't know. What you said you had a second one or another one?
Yeah, do you want to go just in case it is yours?
No, I want you to go just in case I think of
Okay, okay, gotcha. We talked about it before. We didn't talk about it during the show. I didn't know if we would, but Devin Booker, when they beat Milwaukee and Giannis took the last jump shot, and Devin Booker said, "I knew we were in good shape." Why are you roasting this man like that?
Hey, actually, no, I'm glad you said this. This let's just count this as mine, and we'll just go. I mean, in all honesty, I personally like. I genuinely didn't think he was like throwing shade. I don't think. Cause, I mean, I don't think Book really has a reason to. Like, and I like it wasn't provoked. It wasn't like Giannis had said something. And I mean, as a player, like you could have that thought. But I think if you think about it, like Giannis had 47 in the game. Like Giannis was dominating the paint, and the shot he took was not barely a mid rank, a couple steps in the 3-point line. Clearly not, his strong suit in his game. So when Book say we in good shape, like that's like if you playing a pickup game and somebody shoot, we good. He with us.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's the same thing. Like even it's not if a person's not great at shooting, I'd much rather take somebody who's not great at shooting taking that shot than somebody who's been dominating the paint all game getting to the rim. Like and obviously because of the struggles, it's easy to interpret it as that. But I mean, I don't really know. I think people want it to be a thing. I think people just want people to talk about Giannis. I feel like Giannis is turning this heel where like he's becoming disliked more than he's liked, at least by people outside of Milwaukee. But so I think they want him to be like this antagonist. Like they want him to be the villain. Like they want him to be the overrated star that consistently gets exposed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's not overrated. One, let's just establish that. But two, I think that it's just easy to point to his struggles right now, especially because he hasn't done anything to offset them. It's not like you can say, oh, but he won a championship. Yeah, you can. I mean, you can say he won these MVPs, but even I would tell you that he probably shouldn't have got the MVP last year. That it should have went to LeBron. So he's I'm gonna say this lightly. He's in a similar but an adjacent position to Paul George. And here's why. The idea that there is something to prove and that there's a certain respect players won't have until you prove it is where they both stand. So that's the lane that Giannis is kind of in right now. It's like I've been there, like I've shown glimpses, I've gotten to a certain point, but I haven't gotten over the hump. Yeah. So hope we don't go Paul George, man. We're gonna start calling this man Playoff G.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Please don't do that to Giannis. Oh man. Oh, you're so nice of a guy for that. Like based on interviews and stuff. Oh man, that's gonna break his heart. Oh. Dang.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Got carried